Welcome. It's Pi Day, and here we are on Connect This, which is pretty exciting. As that intro was rolling, I was actually digging out the classic clip, Andy McDowell's Pi song in the wonderful film Michael, which Doug looked like he knew where I was going with that. I sent it to Rye quick, and we'll see if maybe we can squeeze it in at the end for a quick little celebration of Pi for Pi Day. I'm Chris Mitchell at the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. That's my intro for the day. We've got a wonderful show. Go over that in a second. But first, let me welcome Doug Dawson from CCG. How you doing, Doug? Doug's muted. Thank you for muting yourself, but we're going to need you to unmute yourself.
Okay. I had my pie today. This is also the first day of pollen in the North Carolina mountains, so you may hear me making weird noises.
And Doug, we might have that happen again, but Doug's having a mic issue, so he's back on that mic. He's going to be muting and unmuting to try to make sure that the mic isn't picking up his hay fever. Kim McKinley. Kim, wearing the Fonzie look. Hey, how's it going?
First of all, thanks for mocking me, and that is true, rocking the Fonzie look on a Friday. But where's my pie, Chris? I'm still waiting for this gift you always promised me, and I was on my front porch all morning waiting for this pie.
Yeah,
Nothing
20
is here.
minutes ago, I realized it was Pi Day because Travis told me, so I am not prepared. But I do want to make sure everyone knows that Kim is with TAC Internet Access Construction. So I want to make sure I got that.
Broadband. You're doing this every time to me. It's TAC Broadband, and don't listen to Chris Mitchell. Now on to Travis Carter.
That's right. Trav, how you doing?
Good. 75 sunny. The door's open. The one nice day per year in Minnesota. I hope you're enjoying it, Mr. Mitchell.
I'm planning to get out right after this and walk one or both of the dogs. It depends on if they want to attack each other when we see other dogs or not. So wonderful. Then we have Nick Pappin coming on. Nick Pappin is with Washington State Extension. Go Cougs.
Go Cougs.
That was in honor of Matt Rantanen, who is a fan, a alum, and never misses an occasion to say "Go Cougs," and it's always with the arm up. Nick, you do a ton of research, and you've been at some of our tribal broadband boot camps, and have someone who I've been impressed with in terms of the. You have a fan club in the chat already. But then you specifically asked if you could come on and tell Doug that he is totally wrong about something, and so he skipped you to the front of the line.
I mean, I wanted to come on and have a fight, I believe is the exact way that I said that. And Doug, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know that you had boxed, so I'm not feeling particularly confident today.
You should feel better when you understand my record was 0-10.
Yeah, better than my record.
The rope-a-dope works once every 100 times or so. Every other time you get knocked out.
I never got that far. I don't know that.
We're gonna talk about a few different things today, but we are gonna get back to this question of whether anyone will care about the broadband data when the BEAD awards are out and finished, whenever that may be. This is going to be more of a BEAD light show, at least how I planned it. Ajit Pai is now at CTIA, the Wireless Industry Trade Association. So we'll talk about that briefly. We're going to talk about Minnesota having a law that we previously talked about, and I thought applied only to those who received BEAD grants, but it turns out that it is a requirement for anyone doing directional boring within, I want to say, 10 feet of other utilities, and there's some interesting implications there. I'm not familiar with other states doing it, but maybe someone can tell me I'm wrong. Senator Cruz wants to take internet access away from children and libraries. We'll talk about that briefly. And then someone's probably going to tell me I'm being overly dramatic, which it's hard to argue with. And then also we'll probably touch on how Nick fooled a ISP into building fiber to him. So that'll be fun too. I wanted to start with the Ajit Pai. So Ajit Pai was a commissioner appointed originally to the Federal Communications Commission by Obama, and then he became the chair on President Trump's first term. He is on the Hall of Fame. In fact, next time I visit Travis in his office, I'd be shocked if it's not the largest portrait on the wall of people that he admires, thanks to the 6 gigahertz decision. And then he came out and he joined it was a private equity firm, and he talked about how fiber, we needed fiber. And now he's heading over to CTIA, where I assume his message may change a bit. And I thought that might be interesting. Doug, you shared it with us first. I learned about it from you. So what are your thoughts?
Well, first off, it's very normal for the ex-heads of the FCC to go to places like that. I mean, Michael Powell was the head of USTA, the large telephone guys. It's very interesting that he went from fiber to wireless, because his association is T-Mobile, Verizon, and AT&T Wireless. I mean, he now represents them in Washington, D.C. That's a very interesting transition. So.
Yeah, I assume that job would have been Jessica Rosenworcel's if the Harris administration had won. This is something where it's not too surprising. You've got a new president and change of parties. Suddenly, big trade associations are like, we got to hire the right party people to make sure that our agenda is heard.
Yes. Now remember that Ajit Pai used to work for Verizon, so this is not brand new to him. So yes.
Right.
Yeah, but I think it's unfair too. I mean, the people go for the FCC and say one thing, and they have to stand behind it for the rest of their careers. I mean, we all change opinions. I mean, maybe you don't, Chris, but have you had the same opinion since you were 20 years old that you do today?
No, you've educated me quite a bit.
So yes, we're all saying yes. Yes.
No, we all have. Okay, just making
this
sure.
Is the thing,
maybe
right?
It's just me.
So this is my question. I'm watching, and this gets to a larger point, which is probably more interesting. I'm watching to see if Minnesota has the same number of firms applying for the BEAD awards, because they've said over and over and over again, we will not. These rules are unfair. Every other state has lots of people applying, right? I mean, Travis may still be correct that most of the money will go to the larger incumbents, but what we've seen so far is that there are a heck of a lot of companies applying, and this is something Nick knows more about than I do. But the point that I'm sort of tying this into is that I'm just tired of not being able to predict where people are, where people will say one thing, they'll swear it up and down, and then 2 days later, without anything materially changing on the street, they are just in a different position because someone else is writing them the check. And I don't believe those people. Those people are not welcome on my shows. I feel like we can do without those people. And you can change opinions, but it's when you're changing them based on who's writing your checks that I just don't want to listen to anything you say because I can't believe you. Nick, you haven't said anything so far, so I'm just curious if you...
I mean, guy who is professionally paid to say whatever he's professionally paid is professionally saying whatever he'll professionally say. Yeah.
I'm very sad because Travis may just have to drop off the show if Ajit Pai can never come. I think he's been holding out for that. So
that was my question, Doug. It was like, do you get a lot of requests for these people to be on your show, like Chris? That they just did. You're like, I'd have to deny you. Deny you.
Every senator. I mean, they're. I have. No, very few people. I mean, I will say there have been people that have, I get people suggesting guests, and I will sometimes not be able to respond, or I'm overwhelmed at the time, or I may say, I don't think it's a good fit for us. If someone like Ajit Pai or I'll say Brendan Carr or someone wanted to come on, I think it would be foolish for me to say no if we could have a substantive discussion. I will say that for people who are into tech podcasts, The Verge has a segment on their show now called Brendan Carr is a Dummy, which is hilarious because it's all about the fact that Brendan Carr has listened to their show numerous times in the past and has been a fan of them, and they are deeply upset with the way he's let's just say, taking a different view of the First Amendment than most of the rest of us. And so they keep inviting him on, even though they're insulting him with a regular segment. But no one has really asked to come on. And I expect that if you guys had a proper host, more famous people would want to come on.
Dang. How do we get a proper host? That's a good question.
Yeah, you want to coordinate with Rye for a coup. So anyway, I mean, I'm curious, and I'll reach out. I mean, in particular, Doug and Kim are much more familiar with this, I think, than Travis and I are. But like, I just have no. Am I just too naive to think? I mean, I really wish like Congress staffers, when they heard from someone like Ajit Pai, would just like roll their eyes and show them the door afterwards and just be like, whatever.
Well,
that's not how this market works.
It's all lobbyists. It's all lobbyists. Nobody in DC takes lobbyists seriously, but they take their position seriously when they contribute money to you, the politicians. So you can buy opinions, but they do not take them personally seriously. I mean, they adopt the arguments that they get paid to adopt. So not only do the people like Ajit Pai do that, but then the people who are lobbied in DC do the same thing. So that's my cynical take on it.
Well,
yeah.
I think it's the difference of what your beliefs are and like kind of what Nick said, what you're paid to do, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're trying to combine those into one, and not what everybody does for a living is what they fundamentally believe in their heart. I know that's a shock to you, Chris, because you absolutely do, but it's two separate things. Like what your business decisions are and what your personal beliefs are could be vastly different. And I think that's where we're seeing it and trying to combine it into one.
Yeah, it's the difference between what you stand up and say on the stage and what you say while you're sitting at the hotel bar.
To some extent, but I mean, I think you'll find that the people on this show might just be going into greater depth at the hotel bar, and the later into the night, the more depth. One of the things I found is one of the things I found is that if you're really trying to educate yourself in this business, it's helpful to not drink and then spend a long time with people who do. So.
What are you trying to say about me, Chris? I don't know.
All right. I was gonna say I feel seen in that remark.
Is it time to tell Chris what really goes on in the grown-up world? We're all coin operated, Mr. Mitchell.
I don't believe that. I mean, I don't think you really believe that, Travis. I think you recognize that some people are, but I think also that like, I don't know. Like maybe I will just woke up and I'll be, I don't know, green pilled. I don't know what color it is that I'm looking for right now. But
now, what I don't understand, and again, I don't sit and read policy manuals every day like you do, is from my perspective, why Ajit Pai did an amazing job. As a resultarian, he had results.
You're not setting me up for a rant. You're just making me sweat.
I'm curious what the beef is.
No, that's the thing, Travis. Like you pay, like it's not a matter of reading policy manuals. You're focused on one thing, and like there's a bunch of things that you do that are a pain because Ajit Pai did not run the FCC well, did not make your life easier, and you're just not aware of those things. Whereas you are aware of the 6 gigahertz space being a wonderful, well-made, well thought out, and easily justifiable decision.
So I hope Ajit can get us some 7 gigahertz now. So go to work, buddy.
I'm pretty sure he'll be arguing for no more openly licensed or lightly licensed space, but for purely super licensed space.
Yeah, it feels like he's going to aim for below the 2.4 gigahertz.
Well, no. Let's go ahead and jump there. AT&T just filed a petition at the FCC to take back the CBRS license. They do not want people to share in it. So they're absolutely trying to do that. Yes.
Yeah, they want to move it down to like 3.1 or something.
Yes, they want to take that back.
But Doug, let's be honest. In nowadays CBRS, it was fine, but it is anyone?
It's not big enough. It's not big enough
to make a difference anymore.
Yeah,
it depends on where you are. I think in cities that might be the case, but it's certainly been important for tribes that we work with. They're doing a lot with it. So,
but don't they also have access to 2.5 and other bands that you can't get in metro areas?
Some do.
Yeah.
It really varies. But I mean, I guess I would argue that one of the things that we've seen is that tribes can do a lot with a little because that's all they are given, and so they are forced to try to figure out how to use it as effectively as possible. I want to move on though to let's talk about the BEAD briefly. We'll come back to that perhaps with talking about what happens afterwards, but I saw there's more stories. Senator Moran, who I think is a Republican from Kansas, he's been really good on a lot of broadband issues quietly. I think he's had a pretty good head for some of this stuff. And he's been working with Senator Warner, Democrat from Virginia, to try to remove the taxes that Trump put on these the broadband awards. And I can't see it happening. Like I think we've lost. If they could have gotten rid of the taxes last year or the year before, like that would have been something. But I cannot imagine them removing the taxes now. So it'll probably happen next week. Anyone else have a different read on that or thoughts on that?
Well, first off, they didn't put a tax on broadband. It's always there. It's always been taxable income. All grants are, because majority of grants go to salaries. They go to college guys who work in labs and stuff like that. So grants are automatically taxable. And what happened in the past is for infrastructure grants, the IRS came out every time and had a waiver to get rid of those. The 2017 Tax Act said the IRS didn't have that power anymore. So now Congress has to step in. They've had 4 years to step in. You're absolutely right. So this is kind of late, and in this environment, who knows, 50-50 shot, right? So
no, I don't think it's a 50-50 shot. I think this Congress desperately wants to lower taxes. And so anything that would result in making it harder to lower taxes is very unlikely to happen, I think, because they have to choose between lowering taxes on those who get broadband awards and lowering taxes on their constituents.
Yeah, I'm saying, but it is introduced by a Republican, so who knows, right? So,
Well, it's not even their constituents; it's their donors that they're looking to.
That's
drop
what I meant.
taxes on.
Yeah.
It's ISPs.
Yeah,
the people that
I mean, this kills the little ISPs. If you're a little ISP and you win a $10 million grant, I don't know if they realize that they will probably go bankrupt when their tax bills do. I mean,
I'm that's why I'm so shocked to see the numbers. And Nick, this is where, you are tracking them. We've talked about them briefly last week with Heather. And, there's so many different ISPs that have participated in the first rounds that we're aware of that have completed. I would have thought we would have seen fewer because of these implications.
Yeah, I think that you're giving me too much credit for tracking more than I am, but I mean, it certainly had wide exposure in Washington. So yeah.
Like, I have a question for you. We're talking about how the BEAD rules are where they are still today. Do we think all of this is just going to change? Like, is this a non-issue because other things like the program is going to look totally different? Or is this just something that we're just still talking about because we think it's going to go out as is?
Only Congress can change the tax. So if this bill doesn't pass, it doesn't happen.
It doesn't matter anyway.
Nobody else can change it. So, yeah.
And we talked about this last week, but since then, Blair Levin has said that he thinks that if there are substantial changes that require states to reconsider how they're giving awards, which would be the method by which they would direct more money to Starlink and less to fiber, which seems to be the concern that could happen, it's a year process. And I still think the smart money is on, Secretary Lutnick, who I think just actually was directly criticized by President Trump. But I think, he will probably just yell and scream about how they're changing everything and Biden was terrible. And then they will largely proceed the way that the program would have gone. But Doug, I think you might disagree.
ISPs are banking on them passing something like that law that's up at Congress right now that gets rid of a bunch of the garbage rules. So that they're all hoping that happens. And that would not take a year to refile. You could take the grants that have already been filed. People could refile them in 2 days by eliminating some.
Right. No, you're not disagreeing with me. I think the question is whether they would require like half the money to go to Starlink. It's not inconceivable, but it's pretty close.
That's not inconceivable. We're not going to know till the new head of the NTIA gets seated and we find out what the new rules. That's something that the NTIA can set without anybody else telling them. So they have that authority. Yes.
Well, I mean, this all comes back to one of the big parts of BEAD is minimum BEAD outlay. So, whoever comes in the lowest is getting the bits or is getting the project.
If they do it that way, Starlink gets most of it. Yes.
Well, and I mean, in Washington, we just had stuff awarded to hybrid in round 1 because they asked for full fiber and then an alternative plan.
Every time I've looked at this, I've come to the conclusion that I don't know nearly as much. Like I think Alexis in the chat there probably knows quite a bit more. Obviously Heather does. Every state seems to be so different. I'm nervous about trying to guess how
You've
this
never
impacts
been
things.
wrong before, Chris. So why are you nervous now?
It's nice being a goldfish. So
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I think could make a big impact and sort of low disruption is changing the layer of credit. I mean,
yeah, that's
and
huge.
that's yeah,
I'd
and
love to see that.
and that's something that definitely could happen. And like I said, I don't think that it'd change a whole lot of where everybody's at. And honestly, if we have to go back to, Chris, to your point, if we have to go back to, heaven forbid, we have to go back to the challenge process. But we're already using maps that are potentially a year old, year and a half old. So yeah, there's a little primer for our argument coming up here, I suppose.
Any last comments on this?
I don't think we know any more than we know in November. We've been talking about this every show since, and I think we just got to wait at this point. So, yeah.
Dude, Doug, you don't even go to like shows anymore because you like to stay in those
I'm-
mountains of North Carolina. But man,
I meant this show, but that's all they talk about
Oh.
at the shows, isn't it? Yes.
it's all they talk about at the shows, and nobody knows any more than
Nobody
they did
knows
like
anymore.
two days ago, and it's pivoting
Well,
every day.
The thing that drives me nuts is when you get newspaper articles that are like, they have these headlines that suggest they have new information, and then at the end of it, you just find out that like the Commerce Secretary said the same thing he said before, and there's no new news. Go ahead, Travis.
No, I was just going to ask Kim if she noticed the same thing. So I actually left my house and went to a show, and the vendors, I just got the sense that the level, they all ramped up in preparation for BEAD, and they've got all this capacity, and they are absolutely desperate to find a home for something, even to the
Well,
point.
I think that's across the board, right? Because nobody understands. Like you have all of these things with the tariffs that keep coming in and out. They like, how do you keep business models even for the ISP straight with everything like in flux right now on that side? You have everybody's waiting because of all the money that's held. Yeah, absolutely. Like you are seeing a lot of people who did ramp up and they're very frustrated because it's like we're all sitting waiting for the floodgates to open, and when will they open? I don't know. I mean, there's still people proceeding, but there's a lot of people on the sidelines. I mean, I know a lot of industries who are vendors in this space, and yeah, a lot of them are really a little anxious right now.
Well, not to get stuck here, but also has community connect play into BEAD now that we sort of have, we're sort of waiting on BEAD to happen, and we've got an open window on community connect. So
Right, a federal program
Yeah.
that just opened.
So
Yeah, I don't know, but I want to move on, and we're going to move on to Senator Cruz, pushing to change a program that the Democrats put in that created a cap of $200 million a year in the E-rate program that could be spent on devices to help school-age children be able to connect to the internet from the bus or from home. And this hinged on the idea of redefining what a classroom is in the year 2025. Some of the people like Senator Cruz and now Chair FCC Chair Carr were very opposed to this for a number of different reasons that I didn't find very convincing, but nonetheless, they had their reasons. And so Cruz is trying to use what I believe is the Congressional Review Act, which would not only reverse the decision, but would make it so that the Federal Communications Commission could not ever do this without further permission from Congress. So has anyone taken a big swing on this one?
thank you, Chevron.
No, I'm not sure that Chevron changes a whole lot, but Doug, you're gonna have to unmute.
Yeah, their reasons are silly. They're saying that the kids can take these computers home, the hotspots home, and watch porn. That's what this is all about. And it's ridiculous because those things are locked. They can only connect to the school server. There's millions of kids who take home school laptops every day, and they have exact same issues, and they are locked down tight. And the fact is, if they stop this, I think the next step will be they'll stop schools giving laptops to students. I mean, I don't know why you would stop here, and that scares the heck out of me. So,
go ahead, Trev.
So it's been 110 episodes, and I'm going to finally disagree with Doug. So my kid brought home his laptop, and it took him less than 2 minutes to bypass the mediocre security the school had.
You're not supposed to say this on.
Yeah. It again, I'm not making broad statements, but the tech stack and how they implemented it, at least here in Minnesota, a third grader could bypass it. So
I like how he said it was his son who bypassed it. We know who
Right.
was helping his son bypass that.
And then I was
Dad,
gonna say under the
Dad.
bus.
and then with the way these kids are all connected, one message out, they were all through it.
Correct.
So
So us old folks think that it's really locked down, not for these smart young kids.
So I'm not going to disagree with that, Travis. I feel like the truth is most of the kids are probably not going to be engaging in that kind of behavior. Some will find any means to circumvent. It doesn't change the question of whether it is appropriate for schools and libraries to be using this fund to make sure that kids can have access in the home. I've never found it persuasive, the idea that you could that we should deny home internet access to on the order of 9 million children because some of them will engage in activities that we don't want them to. We don't do that for other things. We let them have baseball bats and all kinds of other things they can do damaging things with.
They all have cell phones. I mean, who are we kidding here? So.
Well, I mean, that is the next thing, though, is that this is something where I don't think they're totally wrong on. Senator Cruz and others, I think, want to make sure that teenagers aren't able to get on social media. And I don't know that that's crazy. I think there's pretty reasonable questions about that. Go ahead, Kim.
But I was going to say, we talk about these computers, but some of the best talent in the world at some of these companies get hacked into every day. So you're never going to ever prevent this because it's going to happen. So I think it's almost mitigating the risk. And I'm actually going to agree with you, Chris, which I don't know if I'm really comfortable with agreeing with you either. But yeah, I think that it's stupid to put another. We're trying to get rid of bureaucracy right now and save costs. And they're trying to put it almost another level into this position of bureaucracy. So yeah, I think that it's not a plan that should even be bothered with.
The good news here is that Ruben just told us all that he's a hacker. That's great. So.
I believe it's pronounced Hackstore now, but I could be wrong. Maybe there's already a new way of saying that. Okay, we're going to jump into one of our meatier subjects, which is Minnesota has passed a law, which I'm misrepresented by accident before, I think. We talked about this as being a requirement as part of receiving BEAD funds, but it appears that is actually applicable to everyone who is doing work in the right-of-way within, I believe it's 10 feet of other entities in the right-of-way. It requires technicians that are doing this to complete 40 hours of training and pass a state-approved exam. It is going to take effect in the 7-county metro where Travis is and I am and 3 million other people are or so. And by basically July 1st, you have to have this. At any given point that you are doing this work, you have to have 2 people on the crew that are working to be certified in this manner. There are a variety of certifications. This is something that's still being developed by the Department of Labor and Industry. Then also you have to obtain, I believe it's 4 hours of refresher training within 3 years of the initial one. And I'll say that I'm not going to sit here and just bag on this because one of the things that when people come to us and they talk to us, it's sometimes they come to us because they're just yeah, we just had some people come through town. They tore everything up. It was awful. And as a town, what can we do about it? This is reacting to a real thing, I think. Although I think we're going to talk about some of the ways that we don't think it'll work well. Go ahead, Doug. You're leaning forward so far. I don't want you to fall off your chair.
States do this. This reminds me of a law in Nick's state. Washington came out about 4 or 5 years ago and said that you needed a licensed electrician to put an ONT on the side of the house. It just completely screwed up the whole ISP world. Nobody had licensed electricians in the staff, and hiring them was 5 times more per hour. So they're trying to solve a problem. It's in a ridiculous way, and to do it by July 1 when they haven't even worked out what the certifications are.
I think they do have a list of certifications.
Well, I know,
but some of them are not done yet.
You make it come in a year or two, and it's not the world's worst idea in some aspects, and that it does get rid of the fly-by-night guys. Except that it won't. It just means there'll be fines against them. It won't stop them from working. Who's going to enforce it? Is there going to be a certification cop running around the job sites?
Oh, do you think that could be my job? Because I want that job. Just what's your certification?
I mean, I,
Can I
I
design your
think one of
badge?
us, I
Go
think
ahead.
one of us worked for OSHA at one point.
Oh,
I did spend 3 months with Oregon OSHA learning how state agencies work. Travis, I want to get some input from you. You have hired a lot of crews, and to my understanding, there's not been a news report of you blowing anything up in Minneapolis.
No. So which side of the argument would you like me to argue? Because
The one that you feel is accurate, because you would never say something you don't believe in.
which one is paying you? Well, yeah, which one's paying you? I just wanted to know.
I mean, I guess I understand the point, because when large national providers come into markets outside their markets, they tend to bring in, they're probably great people, but they're under a very strict timeline and a very strict budget. And I would say there could be some shortcuts that get taken. Our local people that have been doing this for 15 years, I wish there would have been an exemption for them, because they've been, we've had effectively zero issues, in 15 years. So to run them through a program that's very hard actually right now to even figure out what program to take and to get this certification, effectively what it does is it is just going to cost more money to us, because the contractors will pass it on to us in a per foot fee, which will then ultimately get passed along to the customers.
Now,
Oh, do I get to talk? Do I get to talk as coming from a construction firm now? Okay. I understand both sides too. But go ahead, Chris. Is because I
was trying to
understand what
think of
they're
something
trying
funny
to
to say, making fun of your new job, but I failed. So I just
do.
interrupted you
Yeah,
for no
but
reason.
like we know you have bad jokes. I mean, even worse than mine, which is bad. So coming from the construction side, safety is our number one priority every day, each day. So I understand what they are trying to do, but I agree with Travis, right? It is the bad actors, and that's why it's so important to hire the right people, because who have this track record, because you are going to see they're trying to regulate just bad business practices. And the people who are going to do this are going to do this whether this law is in place or not. But I do understand what the state is trying to do and really protect employees and the safety of the crews as well.
Yeah, I mean, just to give you an idea, so we'll have a safety meeting every single morning and, go through everything, even to the point that I got written up one time. I showed up in my sandals to the job site and I got written up for it, even though I was paying the bills. I mean, that's how serious these crews take safety. So I don't know that, there's many theories as to maybe there's some other reasons that all this is happening, but right now, I think they're being a little aggressive. I think that July 1st, probably get kicked out simply because the curriculum I don't believe is ready on people to take.
Yeah, and I mean, just to give you kind of a perspective inside of a construction firm, every meeting at Team Tech has to start off with a safety moment, because it's at the core of what we do. And it's like personal. What kind of safety could you have done today? What kind of moment? So we talk about it in every single day, all day. So yeah, no, it's just, I think it really comes down to a lot of factors.
I do think this is being pushed nationwide, and so that's one of the reasons I want to talk about it. It's not just a thing in Minnesota. I think CWA, the Communication Workers of America, as well as perhaps others, have seen some of the ways in which what we've been talking about for years, of like some fiber companies just trying to get out there as fast as possible and cutting corners. Whereas others don't do that, is leading to a reaction. And so, like Travis said, there is a discussion in the legislature about amending the bill and pushing it out another year, as well as changing some of it. Sometimes you need to get the attention of the right people to get their input on a bill by passing it first. And that might be what happened here. Go ahead, Travis.
Yeah, I guess I would just add some color to it, that I'm not going to say 100%, but over 95% of hits that do happen are missed mark utilities. So if they really want to attack this issue, maybe there should be a utility certification as well. That's really what the problem becomes. It's not,
Travis. Yeah. Isn't that problem one of just that industry is sort of in a really sad state right now? It just can't keep up with the volume?
Well, what happens is, you got to think about the public right of way. Generally, in most neighborhoods in the United States, there hasn't been a lot of construction in the public right of way, because most of the networks that are operating are aerial. So now that we're getting underground, we're going past sewer, water, gas, and a lot of these utilities haven't been marked or even mapped since the early 1900s. I mean, I'm being a little facetious, but for a
that's true in Minneapolis as well as small
Oh,
towns?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and a
Well,
lot of
and-
a lot of the utilities, I've seen people out with the center point with the gas with these old books trying to figure out where everything's at, from when they were originally installed. So I think the certification will help potentially. I don't think it's going to solve the problems.
Now, the first draft of the bill actually required locators to be certified as well. So I don't know if that got in the final bill, but that was in there. So
Okay.
yeah.
Like
Well,
Chris,
I
I've seen some things happen where there's a guy who's walking down the street telling people, the construction crew, where the water pipe is. I mean, that's how bad some of these records really are. Is that there's a
Divining
guy
rod, a
in the
divining
town?
rod.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead, Nick.
Well, and I mean, my entire point was going to be, yeah, we don't know where these are, and even if they're still live, like, going
Right.
back to the gas stuff, a lot of times it's just cap it, and it'll be, cap it, and it's somebody in 50 years problem. So, and the other part here that I scribbled this down is show me the data. Is this a big hit? Are there live utility hits? I mean, we all know that there are utility hits, but is it increasing? Is it decreasing? Is it flat? Are you just trying to decrease?
Well, my observation is the general public is terrified of gas. And that's where I think a lot of this comes from. And if you hit a water main, or not a main, but you hit a water service, or you hit a sewer, or you hit a sprinkler, it's fairly irrelevant. You can fix it pretty easily and move on. You hit gas, now the fire trucks are coming. They're blocking the street. They're going door to door, telling you to evacuate. The old school gas technicians will tell you it's not a problem, but it really looks bad when you hit gas.
Look at Ruben's remark. I think it's the best of the day.
Yeah.
I'll admit to not being a huge fan of exploding. But Travis, let me ask you,
have
you a sense of...
there's more issues with like home appliances and furnaces nationwide than there are with underground utilities. But again, I'm not proposing that we don't get people certified and have a really regimented safety program. But to Nick's point, I'm not. Is it a solution looking for a problem?
Doug, hold on a second. Travis, do you have a sense of how many times, and I don't want to just personalize, but do you have a sense of how many times gas has hit and there's no explosion? I mean, is this just a case of like your crews have never hit gas, or do you guys hit it and you can deal with it?
I bet we probably hit a dozen gas a year. And again, it's always, to Nick's point, the old gas line was capped. The new gas line was ran. You go past the new one, but no one located the old one. And
the thing is, I ran into this in my house where we did some work, and we had a gas line that had been operational for some time, and then took it out of service, put in a new copper line, and that was a higher density, and of course we did it on a Friday, and after the end of the working hours, like, we smell gas, what is this? And it was just off gassing from the pipe. The pipe didn't have any gas in anymore, but like that pipe has soaked up gas for years and years and years, and you can't tell immediately whether or not it's new gas or old gas or what.
Well, see, the bigger issue is in the summer or in southern states, you immediately know you hit the gas. Where the problem in northern states that have frost, if you hit the gas, you don't always know that you hit it. That's the bigger issue. So you got to be very careful boring in the winter is what I would say.
Nick?
I mean, out here in my neck of the woods, we hit a farmer hit a gas main, like an 8-inch high pressure gas line. And there wasn't an explosion. There was a lot of everything moving everywhere just because it was high pressure gas. But
you caused global warming.
I did, but some farmer did.
Kim, any last comments? Go ahead, Doug.
Let's not forget that the very bad luck of Google Fiber in their very first week in Kansas City and the construction, they hit a gas line, exploded, and killed 2 people. First week of construction. I mean, it does happen.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah, it does happen.
Okay, so we're talking about there has been explosions, but if you look
Yeah.
across it,
It's
like
it's
how
rare.
much construction is really
Yeah.
happening versus how many explosions ever happen. And yes, gas lines get hit every day for various reasons, but like I don't it's very like the percentage. I don't have the percentage, Nick, and I don't want to be the person who just lobs a percentage. You're more
Yeah.
the data person is, but it's very minimal at most. And so I do think that they could be looking for a problem, but I also don't think it's a bad idea to have more certifications out there to prevent it as well. But it delay construction and does it delay progress because of bureaucracy? I think that's how we have to look at it a little bit there.
Yeah, I think I would just wrap up by noting what Nick had said, which was I'd be curious about the data because I don't want to be in a situation like we see with barbers and hair specialists and things like that, where we load up with unnecessary barriers to job entry and things like that. If a lot of this can be solved by proper on-the-job training and stuff like that, then that might be the important thing. I will say though that having to say what Kim said is that not everyone is required to have this certification. You have to have a certain number of people that have it. And so I don't think the legislature has been unreasonable. It's just, we have some questions about how exactly to do it. We have two big things that are Nick centric now. Nick, thank you for eating your vegetables. Now you get to have the mashed potatoes covered in butter. And let's start with BEAD. You wanted to make the case, which is near and dear to my heart because I tried to make it, but you're going to do it better. I think that is important to have good data, even after we don't have gobs of federal money to throw at states. Do you want to remind us what motivated you to come in and challenge Doug to a duel?
Yeah, so this is coming from Doug's blog a couple of weeks ago, 3-4 weeks ago now, of who's going to care about the maps. And, at least for me, I think that everybody's going to continue to care about these maps.
Well, that's nuts. Everybody? You want to defend that?
Everybody. I'm setting up that straw man right off the bat.
Okay,
So,
I just won this argument very easily because I'm not going to care. I win.
Okay. I mean, Doug, reasonable people can agree to disagree. But I mean, so we have backported this data into previous programs. ARPA, CPF, I mean, Community Connect and Reconnect are both using these maps. So pretty much every funding program at the national level is going to continue to care about them.
Nick,
And
am
then-
I understanding that you are skeptical that the Biden administration of everyone, what is everyone gets internet access? What was it called? There was Internet for All. Are you skeptical that we're not going to end up in 2027 with Internet for All and we don't have to worry about this anymore?
I mean, I can guarantee you that come 2027, I will find lots of places. We can go on a road trip, Chris.
I'm predicting that there will be 5 million homes not served by BEAD, even if they build it like it's proposed. I mean, they're definitely not getting everywhere.
So don't you think we'll need maps then, Doug, to try and figure out more of this?
I don't, because I believe this administration or the one following will say Starlink can get everywhere. We have universal broadband problem solved, and there won't be any more until the states go to have their own grant program, like we did before BEAD. That's how it's going to get solved in the future, is my guess. So yes.
Well, and that was kind of where I was heading next. Is
yes,
that
but
even the states?
But the states will end up with their own maps. I mean, that's what they'll do, just like they did before BEAD. They'll start with federal maps and they'll clean it up themselves and they'll use it. But the federal map is, no one's going to put the effort into carrying. The ISPs all lie on it, and we all know they're terrible. And we had map challenges, which were a joke. They didn't clean anything up. So they're not good. They're a good starting place. And then, the states use them. Minnesota had a much better state map before BEAD than what they ended up having to use for BEAD. It's a real shame because they went through Georgia did too. They literally went out everywhere and looked. Imagine that.
Well, and they had contracts with private companies to get access to the real data.
Yeah. So I mean, imagine that they actually went and did the actual legwork to find out where the broadband was, and all of a sudden that's a good map. So
Okay, so let's be clear then, Doug. Your
so
position.
I'm not really disagreeing with them, but I think the FCC maps are I don't they've never been good, and I don't think anyone's going to. The ISPs are not going to spend any extra time reporting better after BEAD. So
I mean, they aren't reporting well now, so
right.
I'm thinking that my entire thought is that even if we can quantify the wrongness, that's still useful data. And also from putting on my other research hat here, this is a really amazing data set that can start to talk to us about social indicators of health. And in fact, if we marry up the BDC to the 477 data, we can start to get really decently long longitudinal data.
And so your point, Nick, is that these maps can be used for a variety of benefits well beyond just, and that's what Alexis, I think, was alluding to as well.
You are so cute, Nick, like with your positivity of that, like just so cute. Like, yeah, I like this. Thank you, Chris.
Oh, Kim, let me tell you, everybody in my life just looks at me and thinks of me as a ray of sunshine.
Because I get that we could use a lot of things if we did it better. Like, that's pretty common. What's actually going to happen, I think, is more of what Doug said. Nobody's going to give a crap about these when the BEAD money is gone. Like,
I mean,
Doug, sorry, Nick, you have to understand that Kim is now paid to talk about how safe the industry is and not paid to talk about how much you need.
Somebody's writing a check right now.
I've just been part of like a dozen different state map challenges, and they were just horrendously terrible processes. They didn't clean the maps up one bit, and I would love them to be good. If they were good maps, I could think of a dozen ways outside of this industry they'd be highly useful. And maybe the best use of them is the fact that we've put a dot on every house supposedly, and if that gets better, I can think of a dozen uses outside of broadband that's extremely useful, right? I mean that's better. That's better than what the census did. So that's actually pretty darn useful data. The geocoding. So you're right about that.
We put a dot on about 1.3 of every BSL, but
yeah, but it's a good start.
I mean, I do feel like I'm always trying to figure out where we are in terms of with relation to like electrification, right? And I feel like you're sitting there in like 1938, 1939, and you're saying, what, we put all this money into federal electricity, but most of the farms still aren't connected, and there's a bunch of places where they haven't even started forming the co-ops yet. What are we really doing here? Like the question is, I think that there's a lot more work to be done on internet access moving forward that others don't appreciate. Yesterday, we did a Building for Digital Equity, which I highly recommend people watch. It's a quarterly show that we do. And one of the discussions that came up was that this is a forever problem. We are sitting here 100 years, 140 years after some cities began electrifying, and we still have to put money into making sure that we have decent electricity around the country. This is going to be an ongoing problem for internet. And I don't know if it's going to be in 2029, but I do think government will eventually have good maps of where there is decent service. Probably
is this the Woodrow Wilson part of the show? I just needed to ask.
Predates Woodrow Wilson. I don't even know. Woodrow Wilson would have been born, but he probably would have been in his teens when cities started to electrify. It would be my guess. Maybe 20s.
Just asking. Okay, continue.
You took it away from Travis. He's super sad now. He's going to smile, but he's sad.
I was actually Googling. I was actually reading the Wikipedia article for Wilson so I could get something in here, but Kim took it. So I'll save it for next time.
All right. So I know the city of Wilson, North Carolina, I believe electrified in 1890. I don't think they were in the early wave. I think it was sort of the late 1880s is where cities started to get a little bit more serious about electrification. Didn't really take off until closer to the turn of the millennia, turn of the century.
Well, first, okay, let's go back to the original premise. I'm certainly not disagreeing with Nick that I would love the maps to be better. I just don't see anybody putting the effort in unless the states do it. There will be some states who will make good maps.
So Doug,
yes,
I've got the exact people who are going to make this map better, the ISPs, and they're going to do it after they've gotten federal money, and then they need to get rid of the BSLs that aren't real.
except that, yeah, that's a little bit of an improvement. But yeah, let me tell you a story that I think I mentioned in that article, though. As part of that article, I talked to a farmer in Illinois, and he just called up his co-op and says, I want 9 connections. He owns 3 farms. You would think that's 3 connections to 3 farmhouses. He wanted 9 connections. That's 9 BSLs, truly separate places. Corn dryer, feed lot, barn. They were on different, some of them were in the middle of fields. It turns out that the dots in the middle of the field were real, turns out. So
Yeah, but Doug, is that something? I mean, that's the sort of thing that I'm.
but the point is, in rural America anymore, how do you even count BSLs?
But this is the thing. Like, so we've worked with a number of folks to talk about this issue of how do you resolve the issue on the farm. My contention is that from a public policy point of view, the farmer needs 1 dot, and then it's his problem to distribute it around. And we've tried to talk with ag producers about this, and they're mostly uninterested. They still see it as like someone else's responsibility to get to whatever point they want to have, which is okay if they're paying for it. But if it's publicly subsidized, like I don't think there's any reason that the public should be subsidizing multiple connection parts on private land like that.
But these weren't on the same property; they were different properties, and so
yeah. But it's all owned by him, right? I mean, like it's so.
Yes.
I don't know. Like I could be wrong. I could be convinced that I'm wrong. I wouldn't admit it for years, but it could happen.
Just we wanted our farms electrified. Don't we want our farms connected? So.
Yeah, but that's the question is like who pays when the farm has electricity and wants it in another space? The farmer pays. It's an investment in improving the land, and so like I don't know that this is a public policy question when it comes down to it. When the farmer can just like right now, if they want to move electricity around to a new building, they can pay an electrician, they can run it themselves. Like they'll probably run it themselves in many cases. There's no reason they can't do that now, I don't think.
But do we have a map of where electricity is around the world or a country right now?
No.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think there probably is. I mean,
no, there's not. Most of the electric companies I know don't even know how many. They don't really know where their meters are. They don't they don't have geocoded them. They have no idea.
I mean, I can tell you that there's not everywhere. So, I mean, obviously there's a lot of tribes that have, particularly like Navajo and Hopi, where they still have electricity to a lot of places. So I couldn't tell you. Anything else on the
our conclusion is it's Woodrow Wilson's fault, I believe. So yes.
Well, I'm actually sitting here thinking farmer's responsibility to bring internet to all of his remote locations. Was it Chris Mitchell's responsibility to bring internet to his garage?
Yes,
I seem to recall 100%. Somebody else doing that. So
yes, yes. So Chris,
do as I say, not as I do, right, Mr. Mitchell?
The question is, how many tax dollars were used in order to get that connection? And are there 2 connections? No, it was someone who is incredibly generous and has spoiled Chris, who took care of it.
And is hoping to get some chicken wings someday. So
who's your ISP? CenturyLink?
No. Yeah.
Well, so yes, my ISP is CenturyLink, and now I would love to have CenturyLink move their fiber to use one of the conduits that Travis graciously put into my yard. And then I will look forward to hopefully in sometime in the near future ripping that out and putting in the USI one, because Travis got permission from the city of St. Paul to do this. Travis, you didn't write back, so I don't know if you want to talk about this or not, but the city of St. Paul had a planning commission meeting just about Travis and whether or not he could build about a mile south of me, and they came to the right conclusion. I'm excited about it.
Kudos to the city of St. Paul. Very, very nice group of folks, easy to work with. Just the way government should be, Mr. Mitchell. Well done.
I was disappointed that there was anyone saying no, but there was people who were like, they didn't like the location that you picked. And this is the thing that I wanted to talk about, because my reaction was like, I know that you've been looking for some period of time, and I feel like these people are under the impression that you could just choose from 100 different properties and you happen to pick one that was inconvenient for some of them.
No, I've kind of distilled down to what the core issue is with, people feel like if you're going to install some computers or electronics in the neighborhood, they think you're building one of these Google hyperscale data centers that need to sit next to a nuclear plant. So we actually had to write up a little thing about it would take like 4,000 of our little central offices to equal one hyperscale data center. So, but they think that's what the issue is. So it's just a little bit of education, and then everyone's fine.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone else. One of those fun things I wanted to slip in and forgot earlier. Any last comments on the mapping stuff, data?
No,
What
but I would like
happened?
to I would like to comment on Travis's thing, because cities do go nuts. The city of Seattle had a rule that they finally scrapped, but before anybody could put a cabinet in of any size, a telecom cabinet, even the little tiniest one, they had to get all the people in the neighborhood to approve it. Can you imagine? No one ever got anything approved.
Yeah, Doug, you and I argued about this, and I don't remember
I
what the
know.
forum was.
Yeah.
Because my point of view was that, like, you know, at this point, everyone knew that DSL was obsolete. And the idea that I'm going to be sitting there looking at some cabinet on my property, which is delivering obsolete service to my neighbors when they refuse to make a proper investment, I was fine with it. I'm like, whatever.
But applied to fiber stuff too. It applied to any telecom gear. So yeah. And cable company. Yes. Yeah, so.
At the time, though, it was for DSL. I have to go back and look at it, but I'm sure that you're right.
Yes.
So. Okay, we wanted to talk then about how Nick could pull a Mephistopheles, and I'm really going to just make this super dramatic, and also want to give Travis something to look up. It's a PH Mephistopheles.
I was actually just Googling it now. So.
And convince an ISP to come out to his area. Nick, I get the sense you live down a dirt road somewhere.
Yeah, I live down one of those dirt roads that have 3 dots on the family farm. So we can argue about the dots here at some point. But
no, I'd love to start there. So am I totally wrong about that? Like, and why?
All right, so I'm gonna paint you a picture. You're standing on the side of the road. You've got this beautiful round barn next to you, and you're looking at a farmstead that's been there since literally it was homesteaded. It has 2 houses on it. It has a shop. It has a grain elevator. And it has an open-sided shed. That was where we were in version 1 of the fabric. In version 2 and 3 and 4, the 2 houses aren't dots anymore. So it's just, the shed, the grain elevator, and the open-sided and the shop.
Are these things on Google, the Google Maps, like where you can zoom in, and like, are they like Google Street View or not?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can. I mean, I'm happy to send a picture here at some point.
Yeah.
But I personally think that there are 3 BSLs on that piece of property. The 2 homes are BSLs. They are not currently subdivided onto individual plots, but if they were subdivided onto individual plots, they would be houses, standalone house. So in my personal view, there are 3, not 5, but it's certainly not 1.
What's the third?
The shop that they use to operate the farm.
You think that is a BSL?
So would you say there's like 2 residential and 1
100%
commercial
BSL.
location?
Yeah. Yep. 2 residential, 1 business.
Okay. All right. Now let's talk about the same sort of area and how, paint us the picture of how you were able to get this fiber built.
Oh, well, so in the state of Washington, we have local funding opportunities, specifically CURB and PWB, our Community Economic Revitalization Board, and their Public Works Board at the state level both have broadband funds. And fortunately, they had some extra funds because somebody didn't follow through on a project, and the local port where I am said, all right, what could we do? And I said, well, we could probably build fiber to the home down these few relatively populated little sections. And they said, okay, can you put together a plan? And that went to CURB and got funded.
And CURB
So
is the economic development program. And then also Washington has a ton of these ports because they've got these big rivers. And so they used to be literally shipping
indeed.
ports. They still are, I'm sure, shipping ports with boats
Mhm.
and such. In many parts of the country, ports have taken on economic development roles beyond just shipping on waterways. And in the case of Washington, several of the ports have built significant dark fiber networks where they have built a network and then work with local ISPs to provide service across those networks. It's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah. So in the early 2000s, ports got the ability to build wholesale telecommunication infrastructure. And yeah, exactly that. So yeah, you think of ports being water, and I live 300 miles from the sea, so why would there be a port here? But railroads often operated by ports, airports,
Has port in the name.
has port in the name, and people don't really think of it. So you get these port districts in some interesting places.
Yeah, they've been really aggressive. Go ahead, Doug.
No, I mean they are actually political subdivisions, just like a town. So yeah, they just have a different
Mhm.
set of rules. But yeah, so
So then
So-
you took it upon yourself to demonstrate to them that this was economically feasible through a series of maps and things like that, using the data that was available.
Oh, they definitely already had the idea that it was going to be economically feasible. So getting over the hump of actually belief was not the problem. It was just putting together the right thing at the right time with the right funding. So
Because when you came to the Lac-Vieux Desert Tribal Broadband Bootcamp, I think you were still working on the best routes and things like that, right?
yeah, that was that. In fact, actually,
Okay.
that was for the BEAD funding. So how figuring out how to do sort of minimum distance networks. Because a lot of what people are looking at today is that they've got an unfunded mandate right now to build out these projects for going after BEAD, and unless you have some amount of money sitting there, you have a barrier to entry for going after this. I mean, even Travis, even smaller ISPs would be largely kicked out of BEAD just because they don't have the $100,000 to pay to an engineering firm. So
there was a question I was going to raise, but now I've lost it. I'm chasing it away. That's what I was going to say. It was, to me, this is like one of those things where there are some obvious solutions here, right? Like we have areas of the country, and this is true in Washington, where you have like a person and there's not really decent internet access within like 50 or 60 miles of them, right? Like there might be a fair amount of people there, but not density really, but still they're not alone, and there's no good internet access around. There's other areas where like you have people that just happen to be these little tiny pockets where there's 3 or 4. And the question is, how can we pay to connect them to the closest ISP? And some states have line extension programs. I think we will continue to see those, and that's where they make sense. I worry too much about trying to have those solve too much of the problem. But there's also a home equity line of credit, which I've long felt is something that should be tapped in these situations where a person wants to connect their home, and over a 20-year time horizon, paying $10,000 toward the cost of construction or something like that is not crazy. It is actually like a pretty good deal for a lot of these people who want to live out there and have the money and want to have a really good internet connection. But we've just not really seen that model develop anywhere.
Yeah,
we actually have some of the PUDs in Washington have allowed.
They are required
pockets,
to. So Washington,
but they've allowed
PUDs
they've allowed pockets of people to petition them to build that, and the people are required to put in some of the money, and that's how they're doing it. So there, I know quite a number of folks in like Grant and Chelan County, these pockets of folks who've gotten added to the network because they're paying for part of it.
No, but Doug,
yes.
so this is something, and Kitsap I think has done this in more than 50 times now. This is required by state law. The state does the utility does not have a choice. If a pocket of people votes to pay for it. The utility has to come up with a cost model, and the people have to pay it if they want it. And so it's interesting because utility can't say, well, we don't think it's cost effective. It's not their decision. The homeowners get to make that decision.
Yeah, and most commercial utilities will let you join to anything if you pay for it. So yes.
Yeah, fair enough. Nick, although I think their pricing might be different. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the local improvement districts actually, going all the way back to how I got started with ILSR and Bruce and Ammon, and that happened to. I'm shockingly going to say this. It happened in a conservative state. And
conservative town in a conservative state.
Yeah.
Most of those things do happen in conservative states. I think it's a misnomer that people think that they happen in blue states, because that's not the case at all. But yeah.
Well, people don't know numbers.
In Idaho near me.
For every blue state, there's like 3 conservative states. So most things happen in conservative states.
Oh, way to use logic against me, Chris. Way to use logic.
No, I in the words of Mel Gibson in Maverick, I'm actually just agreeing with you in a very weird way.
He's been busting on Kim all day. I don't get it. So
I know. I'm like Fonzie. Now. You don't like Fonzie? Like what's up with us?
I don't understand. I thought I was complimenting you. I think you look great, and I think the Fonzie look really works for you. And then y'all think that I'm just busting on her. No, not pretending to not remember what company she works for. That is legitimately rude, and I plan to keep doing it.
It's funny though.
So, Chris, when I was looking at these like multi-acre properties out in Texas, just out of curiosity, it was really interesting how many of them put right there at the top of the listing that they had paid X amount of dollars to hook up and run their own fiber line back to,
So that is happening. Okay.
Oh yeah, no, it was like all the time. And I think what they realized was people were realizing that they were not going to be able to sell their property if they didn't have it.
Right, you put $10,000 into the property, you put $20,000 or $30,000 onto the value of the property. That's a great deal.
I attributed it kind of to like kitchens and bathrooms. They've always told us bring equity to your home. Having high-speed internet is even if you have to pay to get it there, it is an asset.
Yeah. All right, we're about out of time. Any last things anyone wants to share? We are going to be back in about 3 weeks because my life is complicated. We're excited about a tribal broadband boot camp next week. And then after that, something's happening. What is it anyway?
Peace camp. Peace camp.
Yes. Why are we not doing this show on the 20th? Maybe we'll do a show on the 28th. Who knows? Because the week after that, I'm gone again. So yeah, I think we're doing a show on the 28th in 2 weeks. I think we're all set. I just can't tell time. I didn't understand what Ruben was asking about Kim being a big NVIDIA fan, but I mean, who's not? Did anyone get that in the chat?
I don't even know what NVIDIA is.
You don't know what NVIDIA is?
No.
So one of a friend of mine, I guess I won't reveal who this is with more details. NVIDIA is basically what runs all the models for AI. It's the best graphics cards. They were doing all the crypto stuff for years. NVIDIA, this person had invested a significant amount of money in NVIDIA 20 years ago and is now one of the many NVIDIA millionaires, multi-millionaires. Doug, we can't hear you.
Billionaires, yes.
Right, yeah. So NVIDIA has gone through unparalleled growth. NVIDIA is like, if you put money into NVIDIA early and then waited 20 years, kind of like people did with Apple, then you are sitting pretty. Anyway, apparently.
So they do things like better than you, that they buy like low and then they sell high, unlike you that you buy high and sell low. Just saying. Okay.
Yeah, I've given up on buying. I just sell now. And
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think their CEO, Rye, tells me always wears black leather. So Kim, I'm gonna ship you some money, and if you don't mind, in 20 years, give me $1 million back.
Okay, just deal.
We're gonna be back in about 2 weeks. If you have subjects, or if you'd like to come on and tell someone they're wrong and debate them, even If it's mostly for theater, we're here for it. Feel free to pitch me, and then I can say no to more people.
Well
Doug,
done, Mr. Mitchell. Well done.
Thank you. I hope you have a happy Pi Day. Rye, do we want to throw that up quick? Do you have that available?
Wait, is that Agit Pi Day? I'm just not trying to.
Oh, clever.
Yeah.
Clever. There we go. This is a great movie.
Sing your song about pie.
You have a song about pie?
And this is not very long. In 10 seconds, we're going to be done with it.
Sing, Dorothy. Now.
Pie, pie, me oh my. Nothing tastes sweet, wet, salty, and dry. All it wants so well is pie. Apple, pumpkin, mince and black bottom. I come to your place every day if you've got 'em. Pie, me oh my. I love pie.
And really, who doesn't?
Who doesn't?
Well done, Rye.
It's a fantastic movie. Highly recommended. And don't come at me if you disagree, because some of you might. It's been another fun episode. Thank you so much, Nick. But it's been a great episode of Connect This.